The Black Panther Party's 10-point program and the 17 principles of environmental justice stand as powerful manifestos for change. Born from the fires of struggle, both call for a radical restructuring of power. They demand justice and liberation for marginalized communities. This essay will explore the intersections of these two movements. We will see how their shared values intertwine to create a powerful vision for a just and sustainable future. The Black Panther Party, founded in 1966, fought for the liberation of black people from systemic oppression. Their 10-point program outlined their demands for self-determination, equality, and an end to police brutality. The 17 principles of environmental justice emerged from the struggles of communities of color. These communities face disproportionate exposure to environmental hazards. These principles call for the equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens. Both movements recognize that true justice requires a holistic approach. They understand that social, economic, and environmental issues are interconnected. The fight for environmental justice is inseparable from the fight for racial justice, economic justice, and social justice. We must dismantle the systems of oppression that harm communities of color and the environment. A core principle shared by both movements is the right to land, resources, and self-determination. The Black Panther Party's call for land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace speaks directly to this. They recognize that access to land and resources is essential for community control and economic empowerment. Similarly, the principles of environmental justice emphasize the right of communities to define, control, and benefit from their own environments. This shared emphasis on self-determination recognizes that communities most impacted by injustice are best positioned to lead the fight for change. Both movements challenge the top-down decision-making processes that have historically marginalized communities of color. They demand community control over land use, resource allocation, and environmental decision-making. This ensures that the needs and priorities of impacted communities are at the forefront. The fight for environmental justice often centers around issues of land ownership and resource extraction. Communities of color are disproportionately located near polluting industries and toxic waste sites. They bear the brunt of environmental degradation while reaping few of the benefits. By advocating for community control over land and resources, both movements seek to shift power dynamics. They aim to create a more just and equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens. The Black Panther Party and the environmental justice movement both understand that injustice is rooted in systemic oppression. The Black Panther Party's 10-point program explicitly calls for an end to all forms of oppression. This includes racism, capitalism, and imperialism. They recognize that these systems are interconnected and work together to maintain power imbalances. The principles of environmental justice echo this understanding. They emphasize the need to address the root causes of environmental injustice. These causes include racism, poverty, and discrimination. Both movements recognize that environmental issues are not simply technical problems. They are deeply intertwined with issues of race, class, and power. For example, the disproportionate placement of polluting industries in communities of color is not a coincidence. It is a result of systemic racism and the devaluation of black and brown lives. Similarly, the exploitation of natural resources in developing countries is often driven by corporate greed and neo-colonialism. By linking environmental issues to broader systems of oppression, both movements challenge us to see environmental justice as a social justice issue. They call for a dismantling of the structures that perpetuate inequality and harm. This requires a fundamental shift in power dynamics and a commitment to equity and justice in all aspects of society. Both the Black Panther Party and the environmental justice movement recognize the importance of health and education in achieving a just and sustainable future. The Black Panther Party's 10-point program called for decent housing, fit for the shelter of human beings, and an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black and oppressed communities. They understood that access to safe and healthy environments is essential for individual and community well-being. The principles of environmental justice similarly emphasize the right to live, work, and play in environments free from hazards. These movements recognize that environmental hazards have a disproportionate impact on the health of communities of color and low-income communities. Exposure to air pollution, toxic waste, and contaminated water can lead to a range of health problems. These problems include respiratory illnesses, cancer, and developmental disabilities. Both movements advocate for policies and practices that protect the health of all communities. They emphasize the need for equitable access to healthcare, healthy food, and safe and affordable housing. Education is also crucial for empowering communities to advocate for their rights and create a more just and sustainable future. The Black Panther Party established community schools and educational programs to empower black youth. They provided them with the knowledge and skills to challenge injustice. The principles of environmental justice similarly emphasize the importance of environmental education. This education enables communities to understand and address environmental issues.